So we're joined from the shores of Lake Michigan by the windy city of Chicago by my friend Bose Akadiri, the founder of Goal and Grind, unbelievable motivational speaker, coach, podcaster, and soon to be author, which we will talk about here soon. But thank you so much for joining us. This is our personal finance class. I've got a room full here with me at Velma Jackson High School. We're recording this for all of our friends in Madison County Schools. My good friend, Coach Robin Mercer, over at Madison Central High School, Ridgeland High School, Germantown High School, the Academic Options Center, and our YouTube channel. So thank you so much for fitting us in your busy schedule.
Thank you. Thank you. I am so happy to be here with you today, Greg. It is both an honor and a joy for me. I have been watching your videos and I am just elated that I was one of the people that you invited to come and be here with your class. So let's get into it. Let's have some joy today.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Now, we obviously want to talk about all the great things you do at Goal and Grind, kind of your message you have. But I think it's cool to hear the backstory because you're originally from Oklahoma, went to
Yes.
the University of Oklahoma, and had a great experience there, had a great job, but then you knew something was missing, and you moved to one of the largest cities in the world in Chicago.
Yes. Okay. So the thing is, you have got to lead with joy. And when I say lead with joy, I do not mean, okay, I saw this on TikTok and they said that would make me happy. I don't mean you clipped it out of a magazine and put it on a board and you're like, that's what I'm going for, right? What I mean is when you sit down and think about when's the last time you laughed so hard, that your belly hurt. That's a moment that brought you joy, right? And so when I was deciding to move and basically uproot my life and change everything, I was really focused on how do I amplify my joy? How do I get more of my joy, right? And I think we think about joy a lot in our personal life, but I don't think we're thinking about it in other areas. So
There you
I like
go.
to think of joy holistically. You got these four areas in life: personal, professional, health, and financial. A lot of people are like, who's having joy in finances? That took me, as I'm writing my book and researching myself and going back through old emails, I realized having joy in my finances took a very long time because it took a lot of tender conversations and people who were there for me and walking me through, right? I didn't grow up talking about money. I grew up like, okay, do we have food or do we not? Like that was the only parameter. So when I was thinking about moving, I had that foundation where I had an accountability partner and I learned about money. And I said, if I want to live in a bigger city, then I've got to figure out the money part and I've got to figure
There
out
you
the
go.
job part. Yeah. So I literally had to get real with my joy. People said, you want a big city, you could go to Dallas, you could go anywhere. I said, I don't like driving though. So my joy was that if I left Oklahoma and came to Chicago, I was no longer tethered to a car. That is not everybody's joy, and that is fine. But that was mine,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
And when I looked at the financials, I said, oh, an apartment's more expensive in Chicago. But if I no longer have a car payment, if I no longer have to pay for gas, if I no longer have to pay for oil changes, oh my goodness, car insurance, you name it. I said, then I'm actually going to have enough money to pay that increase in rent. So for me, my entire move and everything was me leaning into my joy, me leaning into my faith, and having the understanding that I know based on my joy what's best for me, and nobody else does. Nobody else does because they don't know my joy.
There you go. Now before you started Goal and Grind, you were working in the corporate setting. You worked for several major companies, doing a lot. You did some sales, you did some recruiting. So, talk about how all of that prepared you for being an entrepreneur. Because even if, again, I'm glad you mentioned that everybody's path isn't the same. Because I cannot stress that enough. Just because your parents did something doesn't mean you have to do it. Just because they didn't do something doesn't mean you can't do it. So I'm all about kids having their own options, knowing making the right choices for them, not for everybody else. But
Right.
however, no matter what that path is, you've got to be a communicator, you've got to have a brand, you've got to have sales skills, and you've got to be confident in your communication. Now, before I know you had to delay starting us a little bit today, and that's fine, because before you got here, they were working on their presentation that they're giving next week. So, and they do a great job of them. I really am proud of them, but I know they don't like doing it. But how important is it to get comfortable speaking if you want to be successful? Not, someone want to be entrepreneurs. We have one that wants to be a mental health therapist. Another one wants to be a psychotherapist. Another one that wants to get into real estate. All of those are going to require them to be great communicators. So why is it so important to start getting good at that in high school?
So here's the thing. I always say, because right now in the world, everything is telling us that everything's instant gratification. You've got to have it right now. And I like to say, you have to be backstage before you're ready to be on stage. And what I mean by that is in my corporate career, I did what's called corporate social responsibility, which is a big, long, fancy term for I did the philanthropy. I helped these companies build the bridge between them and community. I helped shape how these companies were going to show up in community, whether it be making donations, making grants, volunteering different places and engaging the employees in that. And so in that work, I wasn't on stage, I was backstage. And I would be talking to our CEOs or I would be talking to other executives and preparing them. And so even though, there were some times when I was on stage, but for the majority of part, I was preparing very in-depth slide decks and presentations. So now in my own business, I still have those skills. Nobody can take the skills from you. And so no matter where you are, you're in a position to gain skills. And when you appreciate that and when you know where you want to go long term, you can think a little bit more about those skills. So my corporate career, I did this corporate philanthropy role. First, I did it at Boeing, then I did it at Salesforce, and then I did it at JP Morgan. So I did it at really big companies. So I was under a magnifying glass, everybody's like, what's this? What's this? What's this? So I had to really hone in on my communication, not only internally, but externally. And that started to build my reputation. And I love that you said sales. So I did have a sales job for a very small time, maybe like 2 years. But what I loved about it, and humble brag here, I was the top salesperson at that company. But my key was honesty because my
Yeah.
mother has always taught me at the end of the day, all you have is your word. Okay, so imagine this. I sell something to you, and then you go over the team that helps you implement it or that does the customer service. If there's anything that I said that wasn't factual, everybody's going to be having a bad time when you get into implementation and customer service, both the customer and my teammates. So to me, my policy for sales was just brutal honesty.
Yeah.
And I was specifically selling software that helped nonprofits manage their databases. And so I would just say, like, if they said they needed XYZ and our software didn't do that, I say, you know what? You might call this other company. We can't do that. And I don't want to sell it to you because you're not going to have a good experience with us. But
Yeah, absolutely.
right. So to me, I mean, and I know not everybody's this way, but sales was just a practice in not only honesty, but what I also call difficult conversations. Because even though somebody is saying, I want to work with you, I want your software. Well, guess what? It's not good for you. You got to go somewhere else. And I had to be brutally honest and say, no, 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 no. And those are those types of difficult conversations. Nobody wants to tell someone no. And so that sales job prepared me because then when I went into doing philanthropy on the corporate side of things, I had a whole lot of people I had to say no to all the time. Nobody likes to say no, but you can do it in a way that's very kind, caring, and humane. And that's what then I learned to do. So in sales, I learned to do that. And then I learned to do that in corporate because everybody would be coming to us saying, can you support this? Can you support this? And it's like, we have this strategy and we only have so many dollars, and this is what we're supporting. And I had to really get comfortable with those difficult conversations that could feel like you're disappointing someone. But to me, I always turn them into an opportunity to just redirect, to educate and redirect. So
Yeah,
yeah, I've been having fun.
and you have a great clip, and we actually watched it, and we'll share this with all the people that see this later. You talked about you had a dream, but you had to figure out a way to make it work. Now, look, I've been just as guilty as anybody of this because I think a trap a lot of people fall into is they sit around and wait for people to find them. And I hate to break it to people, and again, Nobody is more guilty of this than me, so I'm definitely not innocent. Nobody is coming to find you.
Right.
Nobody's coming to find you. Nobody's going to come looking for you. You have to put yourself in the position. Now, is there people that's going to, you can find people to help you? Absolutely. With the kind of connections I've made on this platform, I am more than happy to connect people with people that I know. But at the end of the day, you've got to put yourself in those situations. You've got to say, hey, if I want this job, how do I get seen? How do I meet the right people? How do I get my resume seen? If I want this much money, how do I make it? And you have such a great way of talking about that. So talk about kind of your strategy and your philosophy on that because it's kind of the basis of everything you talk about.
It is, it is. And I thank you for bringing that up because, I really believe it sounds cliche, but your net worth is your network. Okay. So when I moved to Chicago, I had no friends, I had no job, but I was very clear on what I was capable of. I was very clear on what I wanted to do. And to me, that's what really launched things. So because I was clear on my joy and what type of joy I wanted to have in the workplace, I really only networked in spaces that made sense for that.
There
Right.
you go.
So take, for example, I want to do corporate philanthropy. I was only talking to people that did that work. I wasn't talking to accountants. I wasn't talking to engineers because guess what? I am not a numbers person. So why would I be over there, networking in the accountant society or networking, in that area? I said, let me get online and let me find where the people are who do the job I want to do. Let me have conversations with them. And Greg, let me tell you this. The key thing was I came to those conversations prepared. I would say, okay, I have three questions. I would go to the events, I would maybe meet some people, and I'd say, I really enjoy talking to you. I just got here from Oklahoma. Can we have a sit down? And what would end up happening is I had the same three questions for every sit down. So I was building data points so that I could understand the industry better and so that I could build relationships and that people would know me. Right. So instead of me just being someone that you met at an event, I was following up, very much like yourself. You're great with the follow up, you're great with the networking, and networking doesn't have to be icky. It can end up being fun when you're doing it based on your goals that are based on your joy. So rather than just jumping in and saying, I'm going to start networking, no, back up. Take a moment to get to know yourself a little deeper and say, what is it that I actually want to do? And then you go out and start networking. So when I got here, that was the key. That was really the key. And I had a lot of fun because I wasn't talking to stuff about stuff I didn't enjoy. I was getting to talk to people about things that lit my soul on fire, right? And that synergy and that community started to be built. And that's when people would say, oh, I know this job is open. I know this job is open. And that's when doors really started to unlock for me because people got to know who I was long before a job was on the table, right? And I think that's the key that a lot of folks don't think about is networking. It can be fun. There doesn't have to be an objective. There doesn't have to be like, you don't want to wait till you need something to call somebody. That's what I'm saying. Build that
Yeah, and
rapport before.
and the cliche is it's not what you know, it's who you know. I always take it one step farther. It's not what you know, it's not who you know, it's who knows you. Because you have to make people remember you. And look, we spent a lot of time at the first of the semester working talking about resumes and cover letters, and people pay attention to how you write. People pay attention to things that are going to pop on a resume to make you stand out. Now, once you get in the door, it's up to you to own
Mhm.
it. And I'm glad you said I always had the same questions because I just beat like a dead horse when I said when you go into an interview, always have questions. You can ask the same questions to everybody. They're not going to know you just asked it. So you can have the same three questions. If you're worried about remembering things, just say, hey, what can I expect from the first day here? What qualities are you looking for in a candidate? Uh, what made you pull my resume? That's off the top of my head. So
Right.
it doesn't take it does I understand there may be some hesitation. A lot of kids are shy, but at the end of the day, if you can go in there confident, it is amazing how much more you are seen when it comes to wanting that position you want.
Right. And okay, I love what you said about the questions because that's the thing. Nobody knows you've asked them before. It's fine. But the other part, speaking to asking really smart questions about the role. right? And what you said is, what made you interested in my resume? That made me feel really excited because I think what you have to remember when you're interviewing them too, and you're getting data. You're getting data. And what that data, so if you ask someone, what about my resume? What made you want to interview me? That's going to tell you more about what they're looking for in the role. And that in turn is going to tell you more about the role itself because we're all human, right? I've made job descriptions and had them posted online and then realized, wait, there's like also this tiny thing. So when you see a resume, it might trigger your mind to think about something even deeper that would be nice to have in the role. So if any student out there ask that question, what about my resume stood out to you? Take that data, write those notes down, and be prepared because guess what else will make you stand out? Okay, this is my favorite thing, a thank you card. See, now this is how you know I'm an Oklahoma girl at heart. I love a thank you card. I love a handwritten thank you card. Okay. I know we're in the digital age and you got to get it out quickly. So do an email one. But listen, if you are going somewhere to interview in person, I keep thank you cards in my purse. Okay. I go to the store, I buy them at the dollar section, and I just keep them in my purse. It's, I always have. That's what my mom taught me. And I'll never forget, I interviewed at Boeing. I was so nervous, my first big interview in the big city. And I go downstairs after the interview, and I'm writing my note, and then I realize I can't get back through security. What am I going to do? So I had to have them call the assistant for the person I interviewed with. And like after I got the job, she told me, she was like, I saw you. I waited because I saw. She was like, after you interviewed, you were just scribbling. She said you went down there. She said, you're the only person that did that. You're the only person. So if you really want to stand out, just show your appreciation. Show your appreciation for the opportunity to get the job. You might get it, you might not, but you're really going to stand out. And this goes back to those questions that you ask. Whatever question you ask, use that answer in your thank you note. Thank you so much for noticing this on my resume. That's something I would be very excited to use when I come work here.
There you go.
Right? Use that confidence. So every question, those answers, they inform your next steps.
Yeah, and you mentioned about how they're watching you. We had a guest on this platform this semester who has interviewed literally thousands of people, and he said, "I'm watching them pull in the parking lot. They don't know I'm watching. I'm watching the security cameras. If they're driving in there crazy, I can tell you right now, I'm not hiring them." So you are being seen all the time and you don't realize it. So little
Exactly.
things like that, and when you leave, they're watching to see how you react. You know, that's a big deal. Now, before I get to their questions, and I have some really good ones, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about, what it's like to maybe be the minority in the room. Right now we are celebrating Native American Heritage Month, so we have a lot of Native Americans in our district. We have a lot of first generation Americans. And look, I showed you the magazine article where I was quoted as saying, for decades, rural communities, especially rural black communities, were left behind when it comes to resources, when it comes to access. But so many things have changed. So
Yes.
many opportunities have arisen in the last few years, and there's never been a better time to break down walls and become the first at something. And look, just because grandparents or parents didn't have access to something doesn't mean you can't do it. You can be the first at something and you can be the best at something. So, a lot of these kids are going to be they may be the only one in the room that looks like them, the only one in the room that English isn't their first language, the only one in the room that has their color of their skin. So, how can they go ahead and be prepared for that? Because it's not a matter of if it happens, it's when it happens.
It's when it happens. So first off, this is such a timely conversation. I had this conversation with someone yesterday, a young lady whose mother asked me to meet with her, right? So I have to go back to my background to really like answer this. And it's that, yeah, I grew up in Oklahoma, but I grew up in a very homogenous community. Um, I did not grow up with a lot of people that looked like me. I also I'm I was about to say hybrid. That's not the right thing. But I am half first generation Nigerian and half Black
Wow.
American.
Awesome.
And thank you. A lot of people will say, well, what does that mean? That means that I have two very different bloodlines, right? Like I have the bloodline of a first generation immigrant, but then I also have the bloodline of an enslaved American. And what that means is like growing up, I have very different like takes. And then there is the society around me. And so what I have to say about this is no matter what, you have got to focus on you because there's always going to be external noise. My entire life, there's been external noise. There's been people that made fun of me for the way that I talk, people that made fun of me for the way that I dress. But guess what? I like how I dress. I really like the color pink, and I have for the last 41 years. So it's not changing. And if you, I think Tamron Hall said it best when I heard her speak earlier this summer at a Black Women's Expo. She said, if you listen to those people, they will make you not even recognize yourself. And I have to say this, like when I was younger and I was getting bullied actually for how I talked and how I behaved and how it not being, in the box of what people expected for someone who looked like me. I went home every day and cried every day. Okay. I remember middle school and high school being a time where I cried every day. But what got me through was my mother telling me, you need to be you. And in order to be you, you have to focus on your inner joy. You have to focus on you. And when you do that, you end up formulating friendships and community and your network of people who they're comfortable in themselves. And they're not bullying other people or telling other people how they should act and things like that. And so for me, the biggest defense in this is really focusing on your joy. So taking time, I journal all the time. Someone makes fun of me, I come home, I journal about how I love myself. I journal about what I enjoy doing. I journal about what makes me smile. You know, people are going to try to get in your head. I'm 41 years old and people still do it to me. So I don't want to sound bleak like it's never going to end, but there's days when it's harder to deal with. There's days when it's easier to deal with. And the more that you lean into yourself, the more that you have those easier days to deal with. I hope that helps. And
That's
I just
incredible.
want to say, every single student out there, even non-students that are listening, I am rooting for your joy. I am rooting for you to get closer to yourself each day, to love yourself more each day, and to say, I don't care what the world says. And then on this also topic about being the first, I was the first Black woman in my sorority. And I didn't know I was. That's what's funny. I was just doing what I thought was going to be fun. All my friends were going through Rush. I wanted to go through Rush. I was going to live in the big house. I was going to get to borrow clothes from the people that had the cute clothes. I was going to get to have the study materials from all the girls in the house. I was going to and I had all that and I had a really good time. And some of those girls are still my closest friends. They're my chosen family. But if I had let someone say, you can't do this because you look like this or because you talk like this, and back then I didn't know, but my mother would not have been allowed to be in that sorority. I didn't know.
Right.
And now I'm very excited. I have to look online later today, but there is a young Black woman in my sorority who's running for student body president at our
Wow.
university. And
Wow.
my best friend is the advisor for our sorority. So she sent it to me and she wanted me to see. You weren't I mean, and I knew I wasn't the first and the last Black girl in our sorority, but it's just exciting to see. Now, one of my young Black sorority sisters. She's student body president, got voted in yesterday. But anyways, that was a lot. That was a lot. I want to hear the question. I want
All
to
right.
hear what the
All
questions
right. These
are.
are really good. This first one is Isaiah Ray. She's in 11th grade,
Nice.
wants to go to Mississippi State and be a licensed professional counselor. And just found out this week she made a 25 on the ACT on her first try. So,
You did better than me.
yeah. Oh, and get this, they get an ACT for free during school. Where was that when we needed it?
I
Yeah, tell me
mean,
about it.
my
But she's also a member of our band and in student council, a lot of things here. But she goes, ask, what is your personal philosophy or your core message behind your motivational speaking?
Osray, right?
Azaya, Azaya
Azaya,
Ray.
Azaya Ray. My apologies. Azaya Ray. That is a great question. My personal philosophy. My personal philosophy is that we do not need a cookie cutter society.
There you go.
We all need to be different. And the way to really accomplish anything is to start with joy and let it lead us. And then we all have our unique joy. Like I got friends that love numbers. Not me. I have friends that like hiking. Not me. You can catch me at the yoga studio. So the more you become comfortable with your joy, the more you just say, no, I'm not
Yeah.
spending my time or my money on these things. And that is my driving philosophy, is that joy is your greatest tool. It's your offense so that you know what to choose and how to make decisions. It's your defense. So when those people are telling you that you can, you're like, but I enjoy it and I'm good at it. So yes, I can. So you can use your joy as such a powerful tool the more you get in touch with it. That's my philosophy. Thank you for
Yeah,
asking.
and you say joy shouldn't be your ending; it should be what you begin with. And I thought that was really cool. I like this one. This is Zykeria Chambers. She's in 10th grade, wants to get into real estate, but she's also a tech girl, getting some IT certs while she's in high school. And she asked, were you ever shy to talk in front of your class? And what was the best way for someone to overcome that shyness?
Ooh, being shy to talk in front of the class. That's a hard one. Growing up in Oklahoma with a name like Bossy, and then I had, which is spelled Bose, people are you Bose, are you this? It was one of those things that I think you get with your friends, right? Sit by your friends if you can. Greg, don't let me get you in trouble if there's assigned seating in the classroom. But if there's not assigned seating, to me, what kind of helps is being with the people who will pump you up, right? And if they understand what your joy is and what you're trying to do, then they will know when you need the pump up because they'll be like, oh, this is a topic that you're interested in and that you want to talk about. They'll give you a little nudge. They'll give you a little nudge, right? So lead with your joy so that you can share and so that you can be clear on what it is you're excited about and what it is that you want to do in life. So then when you're sitting with your friends, they're like, oh, this is your topic. This is your topic.
All right, I got two more. This is Elijah Dawson. He's in 10th grade. And this is interesting. He asked, what was harder, taking the risk to move to Chicago or opening your own business?
Oh, okay. So, oh, Josiah, that is hard.
Elijah.
Moving or July, Elijah. Sorry. I'm on limited sleep. I literally just moved apartments. Um, let's see. It was different, right? I think moving to Chicago was an easier risk than the business, right? Because moving to Chicago, even though I didn't have a job, even though I didn't have a network here, like I knew the framework, right?
Yeah.
Like I knew this is the kind of job I'm going for. I know other people are doing this job. I know like go talk to these people. So the unknown was more of like, okay, I have to get here. Like, because I was like, I need to make my presence known in Chicago. I was like, I knew a company wasn't going to pay to relocate me to Chicago for that type of job. So I was like, I know I need to get there. I need the
Well,
positioning. Whereas making the leap to entrepreneurship was like everything's unknown. Where are these clients going to come from?
yeah.
How am I going to pay my bills? And I was very comfortable, right? I had spent almost a decade in big, big, big corporate and knowing that I was going to have a paycheck. So this was like, you don't know where your next paycheck is coming from. And being an entrepreneur means doing something that no one else has done. Yeah, there's other motivational speakers out there. Yeah, there's other authors out there, but no one is motivating people around joy like I am. So
Yeah.
there was no blueprint. It was like, I have to write the blueprint.
Yeah.
And that's what made entrepreneurship harder. Equally rewarding, equally rewarding. I'm
Hey,
having a great time. I get to do
hey.
stuff like this.
Well, I got one more, and I love this question. This is Jasmine McBride. She's in 10th grade. Member of our student council, member of so many things here on campus, wants to go to Georgia State University in Atlanta and wants to be a psychotherapist. And like you, she knows where she has to go to do it. So her dream is to be in Atlanta at one of those great universities. So she's in 10th grade. But she asked, oh, and I forgot to mention, she's one of our award-winning choir members here at Velma Jackson. I almost forgot. She's a great musician. But anyway, she asked, to you, what is the true meaning of joy?
The true meaning of joy is the thing. This is going to sound so simple, but if you can look in the mirror and when you name that thing, it truly makes the corners of your mouth go up instead of going down, that's your joy.
Yeah,
And the true meaning of joy for me is what's inside for you, not the external world, right? The external world's giving you all this airbrush. You get on TikTok, everything's been, you know, just filtered, et cetera, et cetera. But which is why I don't really do filters. I don't do filters because you see me like this. If I was in person with y'all, it'd be the same bossy. And people are sometimes surprised by that. They say you look just like your social media. I'm like, I don't have time to make a new face. I better love the face God gave me. So to me, the true meaning of joy, it gets deeper and deeper the more that you focus inward. And I actually think there's a little bit to it that I think of as like being selfish. Like I don't think you need to be selfless. I think you need to like shut out the world's noise and really get centered on, do I truly enjoy doing this?
yeah,
And can I amplify joy if I do it more?
yeah.
Right? So that to me is the true meaning of joy. Are you going like this? Or are you going like this?
Love it. Well, we're almost out of time, and we thank you so much for joining us. But a couple things before we go.
Mhm.
Golandgrind.com is your website. You have your planner on there. The book will be on there soon. All your social media is on there. And I always tell these kids, find positive people to follow that are going to put something good into your life. That's part of having joy. Comparing yourself to celebrities, comparing yourself to influencers. You know, I'm a big sports guy. I like following the athletes too, and the funny stuff is it's fun for a chuckle. But I like to find people that are going to put positive things into my life. So Goal and Grind on Instagram, goalandgrind.com is where they can find everything, and any place else that and on YouTube, Goal and Grind
Yes,
as
on
well.
YouTube. On YouTube. And okay, on that note, Greg, there's something you don't know about that's coming soon. I had a ton of courses that used to be in my group coaching program, but I just feel like I want people to have access to them. I don't care. I don't need to get paid for it. And so my assistant has been working, and we're going to have them up hopefully by the end of the year. But there'll be
Ooh,
a plethora of free courses on everything from networking. So even like thank you note templates. If you're like, I don't know what to say in these thank you notes, if you're like, I don't know what to say when I have these one-on-one meetings with people and I'm like, what do I say? What kind of questions do I ask? So there's all sorts of templates like that for people to just use. So they'll be out there for everyone in your class and for everyone around the world to just use as they see fit. And then you've probably seen this, but on my Instagram, every Friday, which today is Finish Line Friday, I like to celebrate. I like to celebrate and seal the week by saying, what have we accomplished? So I call
yeah,
it Finish Line Friday, and I encourage everybody to share their accomplishments because I'm cheering for you. And I want everyone that's in with me to be cheering for you also. So feel free anytime on a Friday, or even if it's not a Friday, but look for my Finish Line Friday post and share. Let me know what you did. Even if it's something like, I finally found time to get some rest, right? Because I'm guessing you have some students. If you're like me, when I was that age, I was going to school full time as a student in high school, and then I was also working. And so I was working at a fast food restaurant at the mall. So, life was busy and I was volunteering. I was president of the Key Club. So I had a lot on my plate and I needed some rest. So to me, an accomplishment sometimes is that I took a nap. So, so just get on there, let me know how things are going for you, and know that I am cheering for you. I'm excited for your
Well,
joy.
the last thing before we go is, a lot of kids may see that they're here now or may see this later, and they may say, "Look, too many bad things have happened in my life. I'm never going to find the joy. My parents are bums. I never had this. I never had that." And look, that is a real, that is a real concern. And look, sometimes people have bad circumstances, and it is not their fault.
Hmm.
But however, they can still find the joy that you found. So
Yeah.
no matter what somebody's going through, how can they take that first step to start finding that joy?
Right. Well, and that's what's so important. That's why I always say you have got to pay attention to who's around you because they're going to dictate that. I mean, it's not like I came from all this money. I came from generational poverty. And so that's why I was working. I started working long before 15, obviously documented at 15, but I was babysitting, making lemonade, doing all odd jobs in my neighborhood. And my mother was very intent that I would have joy.
That's awesome.
And so if you just put your focus towards yourself, you can do anything.
I love it. Well, we're definitely going to do this again, and we thank you so much for fitting this in your schedule. But this is wildly exceeding my expectations because you were just so
Oh,
amazing, so full of joy, and we thank you so much for joining us all the way from Chicago, founder of Goal and Grind, my friend Bose Akadiri. Thank you so much for joining us today.
thank you, Greg. Thank you, class, for your great questions. I love you all so much.
All right, I will talk to you very soon.
Okay, talk soon. Bye-bye.
See ya.